them on the right path and lead them home. And that's what Onesimus runs smack into the one person who is going to change his life. Third step to be a reconciler is to focus on the present. Focus on the present person without negating the past issue. In verse 11, Paul says, "Formerly he was useless to you, but now he has become useful both to you and to me." So Paul, he's not going to ignore. He's like, yes, I know formerly. I know you guys have issues. So he's not, don't ignore the past. When you're trying to bring two people together, don't act like the past never happened. But what you want to do is focus on the present and focus on the possibility of a better future together. He's like, I know formerly he was useless, but now he is useful. And actually, we're missing something in the Greek. I love puns. By the time you get to know me better, you're probably going to get sick of them. But I love puns and dumb dad jokes and things like that. But Paul is actually doing a wordplay in this verse that we miss. That gets kind of lost in translation. But the word Onesimus means useful. Like that's the definition of the word, of the name Onesimus. His name means useful. So a way to read verse 11 is Paul is saying, formerly he wasn't Onesimus to you, but now he's Onesimus to you and he's Onesimus to me. So he's like playing with words a little bit. He's like, yeah, his name means useful. I know he wasn't that to you. Well, before when you knew him, he was worthless. He wasn't useful to you. He wasn't Onesimus, but now he is Onesimus, and not just to you, but to me. And Paul even goes on in verse 12 and 13. He's like, I wish that I could keep him with me. That's how I feel about Onesimus now. He'd be useful to me. I'd love to have him around, but I'm sending him back to you because that's how important that relationship is. I want you two to be reconciled to each other. So I would love for him to stay here, but I'm sending him back to you, and because I want you two to have a right relationship. So focus on a present and a better future. So verses 12 through 16, it is all about Paul trying to sell this idea of a better future. And this isn't the same Onesimus that you knew. And he's very dear to me. And he's even dearer to you. He's your brother now. So welcome him. So welcome him back. He even says maybe this is the reason for the separation. Maybe the whole reason this happened, as bad as it was so that when you two get back together, it can be even better than it was before. And a lot of times that happens when we reconcile two people together. Is that relationship, once it's weathered the storm, can be even stronger than it was before. One of the best things you can do for someone is to put them on a new page. Sometimes, we kind of condemn people to what they did January such and such and year such and such, and that's just who they are. But when we do that, we're basically denying the fact that God can change. Doesn't God change hearts? Doesn't God change lives? Isn't that like his job description? Isn't that his method of operation is changing people's lives, changing people's hearts? But we like to lock people in and say, that's the way they've always been, that's the way they always are. And we just keep them on that old page instead of acknowledging that God can put them on a new page. God can give them a fresh start. And we have the power to do that in somebody's life when we help them to get on a fresh page and give them a fresh start. And that's not to say, I know there's certain relationships you got to have boundaries. I know people have scarred us and hurt us, and there's sometimes boundaries we have to set up with people and that kind of thing. But where possible, when possible, get somebody on a new page. Too often we hang on to our hurt and we nurse it and we feed it, and instead of just letting it go. So as much as possible, we need to strive towards reconciled relationships, especially within God's church. And reconciliation, it doesn't solve the issue. The issue that's causing the tension might still be there, but it absorbs the issue. It doesn't remove the difference, but it just bridges it. It places a bridge that bridges the gap between the differences. And it doesn't eliminate the problem, but it elevates the relationship and makes it more important than the problem. Because that's the heart of God, is relationship. Never are we more like God than when we overlook a fault and release a person from the result of that. Think about that. The best thing God did for us was took our faults upon himself and relieved us of the punishment. The punishment of our sin was death, eternal death. But he took that upon his son on the cross, and he absolved us of that. So never can we be more like God when we do that to somebody else. They've wronged us, they've hurt us, but we're going to absolve them of that. Never can we be more like Christ. That's the gospel. So to be a reconciler, we need to begin with our relationship with the people. We need to make it an appeal instead of a requirement. And we need to focus on the present without negating the past. And then finally, where possible, invest yourself in the reconciliation. Look at verse 17. Paul says, "So if you consider me a partner, welcome him as you would welcome me. If he has done you any wrong or owes you anything, charge it to me." So Paul's saying, look, this is how important this is that you get back together. If he owes you something, if you feel cheated still, if you feel like there's still a debt involved, charge it to me instead. Take it away from his account, add it onto my account. So when we're trying to get two people back together, if there's anything that we can invest in that relationship, whether it's time, whether it's resources, whatever it is that we can invest back in that relationship to do it. It may not be that financial like Paul is talking about. It might just be in other ways. In verse 19, Paul says, "I, Paul, am writing this with my own hands. I will pay it back." I want to explain that verse to you a little bit. See, Paul, some people think maybe he had bad eyesight, maybe it was some other reasons, but he had there's a big fancy name for it, but it's basically a scribe. So he would dictate these letters, and somebody else would actually be doing the writing. And so the guy would say da-da-da-da-da, and the guy would write down da-da-da-da. So most of Paul's letters were written that way. Still from Paul, it was a dictation, and he shared it, and the guy wrote it down. But this is one time, but there's several times where you hear this phrase, "I, Paul, am writing this in my own hand." So basically what happened, scribe goes da-da-da-da, okay. What's next? Okay, da-da-da-da. And then Paul's like, "Give me that pen!" I, Paul, am. He's like, "I want to show you how serious. You want to know how serious I am? You know how important this is? I am writing this in my own horrific handwriting. I'm going to prove to you that I'm sitting right here, prove to you that these are my words. I, Paul, I will pay you back. Whatever Onesimus owes you, I will pay you back. I, Paul, am writing this with my own hand." And then he hands him a pen back, for the rest of the letter. That's how serious Paul was. He's like, "I want you to know, Philemon, that I'm serious. Wipe Onesimus' account clean. Put it on me. I will make do." Another way we can invest as a reconciler is to follow through. We're trying to bring two people together. It's like, "Hey, I'm going to call you next week, and I want to hear that you've made that phone call. I want to hear that you've sent that text. I want to hear that you've had that lunch meeting. I want to hear that you're taking those steps towards getting back together with so-and-so." And so one way we can invest is just by following through. And Paul is saying this at the end of this chapter. He says, "Hey, prepare a guest room for me." Paul's in prison, and we don't know whether he makes it back to Philemon's house or not. We don't know. But his intent is to. He's like, "Prepare a room for me. I'm going to come. I'm going to follow up. I'm going to make sure you two are good. I am on my way back, because I want to make sure this thing is working out. Prepare a guest room for me. I'm coming to check on you." So God's heart is reconciliation. Sometimes we might try to bring people back together and it won't work out. I'm just trying to be realistic with you. Sometimes the risk will pay off and sometimes it won't pay off. But that doesn't change the fact that God wants his people to be reconcilers, to bring people back together. In the Beatitudes, Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And we're going to close here with this. I used to read that verse, "Blessed are the peacemakers," and in my head, I know I said peacemakers, in my head I was thinking peaceful. Like, blessed are the peaceful, and it's like, okay, I can handle that. These people that's kind of my personality, laid back, don't go out looking for conflict, just kind of, don't go out looking for, just kind of being peaceful and kind of going through life that way. So blessed are the peaceful. But that's not what the Beatitude is. It's blessed are the peacemakers. So a peacemaker has to make peace where there's not peace. It's going into a situation where people aren't getting along and trying to make them see eye to eye, bring them closer together, get them on the same page. Blessed are the peacemakers who bring peace, make peace where it's needed. And the peacemakers will be called sons of God. There's a difference between sons of God and children of God. Children of God is a blanket term for all of us that belong to Christ. He's adopted us into his family. We're all children of God. But when you see Son of God in the Bible, that's more specific. Not all children of God are sons of God or daughters of God. Children of God is about our relationship with God and how he's adopted us into his family. It's our relationship with God. Son of God is, when it's used like this, it's about our likeness to God, that we resemble him, that we're reflecting him so much. It's like people, when you guys hopefully soon will meet my dad, and there'll be no doubting that he's my dad. You'll see him, and he looks like an older version of me, or I guess more appropriately, I look like a younger version of him. So there'll be no doubt. I won't need to introduce you. They'll walk through the door, and they'll say, "You're Bryan's dad." That Son of God is you look so much like what God would look like. You're doing the things that God would do. That's what the phrase Son of God means. So not all children of God get that title, but the peacemakers do. Because God cares so much about reconciling people together, that's where my heart's at. And that's when you resemble me, is when you're bringing relationships that are broken back together. So who does God want reconciled in your life? I don't know your situation. Maybe you are Philemon or Onesimus. Maybe you're running away from something. Maybe you've wronged somebody and you're running away from that situation. Maybe you've been wronged like Philemon and you're holding that. But I just pray that God, I feel like the reason that God laid this heart on my message is I think there's some people in Paul's situation where I have a great relationship with this person. I have a great relationship with that person. They are at odds with each other. So who does God want reconciled in your life? And let's get really uncomfortable for a minute. Who does God want reconciled in Zoah Christian Church? You're not going to feel more like doing this tonight or tomorrow or next week. So we're going to get ready we're going to sing our invitation song. I just want you to not ignore a voice if you're hearing one. If a name is coming to your head of somebody that you need to be reconciled with, or two people that you need to bring together, if they're here today, grab them. When you get home, call them. Don't wait. This isn't going to be easier tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So we're going to stand. We're going to sing, but don't delay. This is the heart of God, that we be reconciled together. You guys stand and let's pray. Your son Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God." Reconciliation is in your very heart. And I know it breaks your heart when brothers and sisters fight. Brothers and sisters in Christ fight. So I just pray that your Spirit would move through this room and place names on our hearts. None of us are where we need to be. We're all works in progress. Just place names on our hearts of ways that we can be like you and bring reconciliation, bring healing, put people on a new page. And we just look forward to a bright future when we're all united. God, thank you so much for walking us through this. Thank you for including this letter, Philemon. Just a letter between Paul and Philemon. It was really none of our business, but you included it in your word as the word of God because you want us to see what it looks like to try to bring two people together. Help us to do that this week, to bring people closer together and not farther apart. Guide us in that. Strengthen us. Allow us to do that. Use us. In your Son's name. reconciliation needs to take place, and you want me to take your hand through that, I'm always here. Or if there's anything else, any way I can pray for you, any way I can help you, my phone number is in the bulletin, my door is open. I just want to be here for you guys. We're brothers and sisters together in this. I send you out blessings, peace, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you.
Yeah.